SMS. Weka kodi ya kwanza kureset, alafu weke kodi ya pili kuupdate ili token mita yako iendelee kufanya kazi kama kawaida yako. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Kenya Power and Lighting Company.
Maji ni uhai yako.
At WASREB, we are committed to ensuring top quality water services. We closely monitor systems to identify health risks and unauthorized activities.
Among the other compliances is the quality. The water quality is also given a full tour and the reporting what will lead to the community is of the right quality.
But how does WASREB ensure compliance to regulations among water service providers?
We start educating, we nurture the WSP. We ask them, what is your problem? Why are you not, achieving what we agreed? So they say, blah, this is. From there, we educate them, we work with them.
Compliance is not just a requirement, it's a dedication to service delivery. WASREB, celebrating 20 years of water services regulation.
Chunga amani ndugu yangu, bila ghasia hakuna hofu. Tujenge urafiki na amani ni nguo ya roho. Mikono yetu iko tayari kushikana, tuje pamoja, tupande mlima wa mazungumzo, suluhisho. Tujadiliane, tusigombane, maneno yetu ni madawa. Tujadiliane, tusigombane, amani isambae kama maua. Heshima ni mti mkubwa unaotoa kivuli cha neema, na kuelewa kila sauti ina umuhimu wake. Tutenge tuwe marafiki, sio maadui. Kama mbegu zinavyota, mazungumzo yatazaa matunda. Tujadiliane, tusigombane, maneno yetu ni madawa. Tujadiliane, tusigombane, sambae kama maua. Tayari kushikana, tupande mlima wa mazungumzo, tufikie kilele cha suluhisho. Tusigombane, maneno yetu ni madawa. Tujadiliane, tusigombane, amani isambae kama maua.
Good evening. The country continues to reel from the demonstrations witnessed yesterday. We have the latest from the courts, and that is the number of people who were arrested yesterday accused of looting. And Ruth Omboi is on standby from the courts, but also the question of a pay hike for your member of parliament as well as your senator and any other state official. Today, President William Ruto has landed a death request by requesting Treasury to review that Gazette notice by SRC. We have those details lined up for you. Here are tonight's highlights.
Bwana Spika, mimi nasema kwamba sitaki mshahara wangu uongezwe. Sitaki. Nimekataa.
We as a Senate are not interested in additional salaries this particular financial year.
President Ruto directs the National Treasury and Salaries and Remuneration Commission to freeze the implementation of MP's pay rise following public uproar.
That is my plea as a parent to my children. Now that you have been heard, a mechanism is being worked on.
And Gachagua pleads with Gen Z to call off planned demonstrations. Central Police Station to report cases of theft during Tuesday's violent protests. Interpreter, my name is John Jacob Kioria. You're very much welcome to the broadcast. In a bit, we'll be joining Ruth Wamboi and Milimani, where Senior Principal Magistrate Wandia Nyamo will be making a ruling. 25 protesters who were arrested in Tuesday's anti-taxation protests because the DCI is seeking to detain them for 21 days so as to finish investigations. But William Ruto has directed the National Treasury to review the Gazette notice by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission (SRC) and reviewing and setting the remuneration and benefits for state officers. And as he led other state officers arms of government to exercise fiscal prudence, the SRC has in the meantime frozen its upward review of the salaries of state officers. The commission is, however, reviewing other public servants, factoring in existing frameworks such as the collective bargaining agreements. The Gazette notice is seeking to implement the second of a two-phase public officers' pay rise was expected to come to effect this month. The outrage as Kenyans accused leaders of being insensitive to the plight of struggling folk. President William Ruto has directed Treasury to review the proposal that would have seen state officers in the executive, both the national and county governments, the Senate and the National Assembly, as well as senior public officers, gobbled in the pay rise. President Ruto says in light of the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024 and the fiscal constraints expected this financial year within their means. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission, in responding to this concern, the pay rise of state officers.
SRC has been conscious of the need to fiscal sustainability of the public wage bill and has consistently taken measures towards ensuring that public service operates within the prescribed affordability.
The Commission, however, insists proposed pay cuts for state officers, as has been advanced by activists during demonstrations, will not be a walk in the park.
What the law says is you cannot arbitrarily cut it. It doesn't. So that means then that we then have an engagement with that stakeholder through, in this case, when you talk about MPs and Senate, that is they have expressed desire that they are willing to have a pay cut. We would definitely be more than happy to go that direction.
Earlier, senators during a special nation moved by Majority Leader Aaron Cheriot riled at SRC, accusing it of failing to read the mood of a country.
The yearly increment that is now being discussed, I saw that being reported or misreported in sections of the media that we are now going to earn more. SRC continues to be silent about it, but we must make a resolution and say we reject even that one. Financial situation.
Bwana Spika, mimi nasema kwamba sitaki mshahara wangu uongezwe. Sitaki. Nimekataa. Wacha hiyo pesa ambayo ilikuwa Senate, na najua ndugu zangu maseneta wako hapa, tuna shida za pesa ndio, lakini nina hakika watakubaliana na mimi ya kwamba si wakati mzuri sasa sisi kuongezwa mishahara. Haifai.
Who has sent them to fuel discontent in a country at a time that this country is bleeding?
This issue of SRC increasing the salaries of members of parliament and state officers is ill-advised. It is in bad faith. It wants to increase the public discontent, Mr. Speaker. It must be called out, Mr. Speaker.
What we need to do, and I'm very happy my colleagues who have gone before me have said it, in all honesty, nobody asked for that increment. Nobody that I know. Personally, I never asked. Shillings.
The opposition also called on its members to reject the pay hike.
We also note with concern the intention to divert the public attention by purporting to adjust the salaries of senior state officers, members of parliament, members of county assemblies, and governors upwards at a time the economy is not doing well.
I want to go on record that I, together with my deputy, Honorable Mbui, have rejected in totality the purported by the SRC.
The Council of Governors and Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria have also advised against any move that would see an upward review of remuneration for public officers. And now leaders are accountable for the violent protests witnessed across the country on Tuesday. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition claims the government had a hand in the protests, while a section of Kenya Kwanza legislators claim the opposition hijacked the peaceful protests by planting hired guns to rain terror on Kenyans.
Umoja One Kenya coalition claims those who took part in the protest on Tuesday in Nairobi and other parts of the country to unleash chaos, looting, were hired. Led by Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka, the opposition claimed the government is to blame for hijacking the peaceful protest.
We have observed that the intention of yesterday's coordinated and state-sponsored chaos was to undermine and denigrate the Gen Z-inspired nationwide non-violent protests.
They also castigated the National Police Service for using tear gas ammunition to contain the protesters against the court order barring the same.
This disgraceful, criminal and illegal activity the right to peaceful protest as provided for under Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Further, Azimio leaders demanded into law the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission Bill 2024 to allow the reconstitution of the Electoral Commission.
The Constitution says if you want to withdraw your member of parliament, you have to wait for 2 years, and 2 years are coming to an end. So really this is timely.
This, the coalition says, will pave way for the recalling of members of the National Assembly who voted for the Finance Bill 2024 to sign into law. But speaking in Mombasa, Nyali legislator Mohamed Ali claimed the goons that went on the rampage in Mombasa were hired by the opposition to target a section of Kenyans.
Katika kaunti zote, wewe tu ndiye gavana unaingia mashinani na kuweza kuinua hamasa ya watoto na kuweza kuongea vibaya badala ya kutoka nje na kuwa.
Kenya wana haki ya kikatiba kusafiri bila kuzuiliwa. Wakenya wana haki ya kikatiba kufanya biashara. Wakenya wana haki ya kikatiba kulinda.
The lawmaker claims Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Nasir has been part of the protesters since its onset, questioning his role. Give us minor prime edition.
Let's stay on those. Several traders and residents in Nairobi flocked to the Central Police Station to report cases of theft by suspected criminal elements who participated in Tuesday's anti-taxation protests. The Nairobi business community has reaction from the government on the spate of vandalism that characterized the protests.
Central Police Station in for the better part of the day, as huge crowds of people visited the station in search of their friends and kin arrested in connection with anti-taxation protests in Nairobi's Central Business District. The release of their loved ones fell on deaf ears, with police making good their vow to take stiff legal action against anyone suspected to have taken advantage of the Generation Z protests to loot.
Shida ilitokea hapa jana, waandamanaji ambao walikuwa Ement House. Hao waandamanaji wakati nilifika wakanikujia, wakanipora simu, wakaninyang'anya na miwani. Enda nayo, alafu pia walikuwa wananikujia niwapee password, na ndio maana nikapata upenyo nikahepa.
Today's action by the police was also welcomed by a section of residents and traders who claimed to have been accosted and robbed.
Ifa ya kwamba waandamanaji wale mliokuwa awali msitishe kwanza hiyo kitu, kwa sababu kwa sasa hivi naona kuna agenda tofauti imetokea, na yale waliokuwa nataka chifu kidogo, kwa mfano kama finance bill.
Meanwhile, traders operating under the Nairobi Central Business District condemned the looting of businesses by goons and vowed to arm themselves with clubs in order to against criminals.
We are here again where we left, to tell them that we are not going to allow people or groups organized with our businesses.
Sisi kama CBD tunasema hakuna uporaji wa CBD. Sisi tutashirikiana na business community mali zao.
Joseph Ohungu reporting for Prime Edition.
All right, that story takes us to a very fast breather on Prime Edition. Don't go too far. We're coming back with more news and business.
Unajua, token mita yako inahitaji system update. Ni rahisi na ni pata ujumbe kutoka Kenya Power, yani SMS. Weka kodi ya kwanza kureset, alafu weke kodi ya pili kuupdate ili token mita yako iendelee kufanya kazi kama kawaida. Update token mita yako. Umeletwa kwako na Kenya Power and Lighting Company.
Kikohozi cha muda wowote, kutokwa na jasho kwa wingi usiku, uchungu kwenye kifua, tafuta matibabu, labda ni TB. TB ni ugonjwa wa kweli, ukipimwa matibabu yapo utapona. Daktari kwa nidhamu, elimu tupashane, tupige vita TB. Mwa TB, TB waishi poa. Mwa TB, TB waishi poa.
Multi-bonus, zidisha ushindi wako hadi na multi-bonus 1000%. Kuwa mshindi, Mozartbet.
Maji ni uhai, maji ni haki yako.
At WASREB, we are committed to ensuring
small pieces so that it will be easy to blend.
Oh, we're going to blend the pineapples. Okay. So we'll give the chicken some time to brown, and then we'll turn to...
Celebrating 20 years of water services regulation.
Welcome back. You're watching the Prime. Have demanded for the resignation of the Inspector General of Police, Japhet Koome, over police brutality meted on anti-finance bill protesters across the country, and over his silence on police conduct in the protests that have resulted in killings, injuries, unlawful arrests and abductions.
In memory of the departed.
The Senate's Wednesday morning sitting commenced with observing a moment of silence for the lives lost during the anti-24 protest.
May God rest their souls in eternal peace.
After failing to raise a quorum for the last 3 consecutive sittings since resumption from recess protest, the senators committed the sittings to address the current state of the nation.
These young people, they cried to us, they shouted, they sang to us, but we did not listen to their cries.
Jumanne ilikuwa ni doa katika bunge hili, kwa sababu hili bunge, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni bunge la kuwakilisha wananchi. Wananchi walikuwa wanakuja hapa kuonana na viongozi wao. Tulikimbia, viongozi tulioacha wakapigwa risasi.
Police conduct in the protest remained a sticking issue.
How can we face such a crisis, Mr. Speaker? Up to this particular point, what the Inspector General thinks, I don't know what is the challenge. We don't know these things that are being discussed. Mr. Speaker, the question at the back of my mind, is this really the right man for this job?
Should have even appeared on a regular basis to update the country on security situation, Mr. Speaker, and tell the country how many people unfortunately have died, how many have injured, have been looted, or what is the state of the security, Mr. Speaker? What is the state of the homeland security, Mr. Speaker? I think that is the least we expected from Inspector General of Police, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I think it's no longer tenable, Mr. Speaker.
The debate coming hot on the heels of public uproar over wastage of public resources, austerity measures, and equally condemned display of opulence.
In another function, I saw a minister of this government carrying a white bag on the back like this and started announcing how many millions are in that bag. Really? No. Mr. Speaker, if we don't refuse these things...
I've listened to... Do you have to do a scandal to be famous so that you can be elected in politics? Why can't we just elect leaders who are able to articulate their issues, their competence?
As a demonstration that he has listened and understood what the people are saying. Reduce the size of your cabinet from 21, the minimum. Merge departments. Reduce the number of principal secretaries from 51 to around 30.
Senators resolved to, among others, call the National Assembly to expeditiously consider the presidential memorandum on the Finance Bill 2024, National Police to seek lawful arrest, government to waive hospital bill for injured protesters, and foot funeral expenses for the departed youth. Kamche Menza for...
And now, tens of protesters who sustained injuries during the youth-led protests are currently receiving treatment in various hospitals across the country. In Kitengela, 24 protesters who sustained gunshot wounds during the chaotic demonstrations witnessed in the populous Kitengela town operating at the Kitengela Sub-County Hospital. 3 other patients who had bullets lodged on the skull were referred to Kenyatta National Hospital and Machakos Level 5 Hospital, respectively.
The country witnessed another round of protests Tuesday, which left in its wake injuries and 3 deaths. The clinical officer in charge of the Kitengela Sub-County Hospital says a total of 24 patients presenting different injuries were booked at the hospital. 15 of the patients sustained soft tissue injuries, with all the gunshot wounds victims reported as male adults.
We had a total of 38 clients, so we referred also a total of 2 to Machakos Level 5, since we didn't have a neuro surgeon. We also had a number of 5 who were attended yesterday and were taken to theatre.
Gunshot wound patient was brought to the facility at around 4 p.m. Tuesday, with others received up to 10 p.m. The availability of just one surgeon at the facility attending to the patients, however, slowed down.
Most of them had gunshot wound to their arms, to their lower limbs, Also, we had a majority of them having, like 3 of them having bullet dislodged in their scalp region. So one of them was critical because he had a dislodged bullet inside the skull.
While some patients confess to have been part of the protest, others say they were mere victims of circumstances. The youthful peaceful but unknown persons brought chaos that triggered police to use excess force. They're calling on President William Ruto to heed to the cry of Kenyans to stabilize the country's economy and make life bearable for ordinary Kenyans.
Kwa mguu, lakini nikaenda hii hospitali, wamenitoa, nimetoka theater saa hii, na saa hii ndio niko hapa.
Mahali askari walianza yani nikiwa tu kwa gari, nilikuja nikanipata nikaruka chini. Sasa hata sikujua venye nilifika kwa hospitali, lakini nilitolewa moja, ndio naenda kutolewa.
Kasi Chanamasha, Prime Edition.
The National Council of Elders in Kenya have called on President William Ruto to crack the whip in his government to spare the country further protests. Speaking in Nairobi, led by their patron, retired Captain Kongo Muigai, the elders regretted that those entrusted with public office had their opulence to the majority struggling Kenyans with little regard and want a lifestyle audit to be undertaken on all elected and appointed leaders.
Cases of corruption in the country has raised concern from a section of elders. The National Council of Elders in Kenya, led by their patron, retired Kungu Muigai, deal decisively with all those involved in looting public coffers.
Corruption has permeated government, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary. And it is like a cancer that eats at the core of our republic. This country, billion shillings every day through theft and corruption.
The elders wonder how a section of government officials have suddenly become filthy rich and called on lifestyle audit to be undertaken of their wealth.
We see people who've been in power for the last less than 2 years, here and abroad, hundreds of millions, flying in choppers, which they call bicycles, donating millions every weekend. But these young people are watching. We want our investigative agency to do a lifestyle audit on appointed officers.
The elders urging the government to address the issue of unemployment amongst the youth.
Those children revolting are jobless. Corruption. We have heard what they have said, what they have demanded, and as elders, those demands, because we think and we know they are legitimate. Your voice has been heard. Don't ban the country.
Meanwhile, Kericho Council of Elders have urged young people in the area to be cautious with their action. The elders said whereas the young people had a right to peaceful demonstration, destruction of property.
Kitu mimi nataka ni vile rais amesema aongee na watu kesho na wasikizane vile iko.
While performing AUDA party symbols that was brought down last week in Kericho town, the elders urged the youth in the area to always champion peace and not hate.
Sasa hii mambo ya tumeweka leo wili bado juu. Hii ni kiunganisho ya kusema Kericho we are united.
Timothy Kipnusu for Prime Edition.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is calling on the youth to all of their demonstrations, saying the government has had them and mechanisms to address the grievances are being put in place. Gachagua, who was speaking in Laikipia East during a burial, noted that what started as peaceful demonstrations has been infiltrated by goons who are now looting and destroying property in various parts of the country, taking away major gains made in the development of the country.
Speaking during the burial of his elder sister, Leah Wangari Muriuki at Mirera in Laikipia East, the Deputy President pleaded with the youth to put a stop to planned demonstrations and be open to other strategies being proposed to resolve grievances raised.
That is my plea as a parent to my children. And I want to say that now that you have been heard, a mechanism is being worked on how the issues that you think needs to be addressed will be addressed.
He acknowledged the peaceful protest, however, noting they had morphed into something else after infiltration by rogue persons who were stealing and destroying property.
Once you call off your protests, then our security agencies will be in a position to deal firmly and decisively with criminals in accordance with the laws of this country. I want to ask our leaders, the way they have started here is a good beginning. Let's tone down. Let us bring down temperatures. Let us all build our country.
The Deputy President advised the youth to consider the gains achieved so as not to erode the gains made in development over the years.
We have only one country with one leader. Let us embark on peaceful coexistence among people so that we enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Serafina Robi for Prime Edition.
And indeed, we're in a period of austerity because the Judicial Service Commission has suspended the recruitment of a Court of Appeal judges following a 15% budget cut by the National Treasury in appreciation. Of course, the 15% budget cut is by the National Treasury, and that is in regard to their budget. The new directive is in line with the austerity measures promised by President William Ruto to cut across all arms of government following the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024. A 28th June 2024 circular from the National Treasury limited expenditure to critical and essential services only.
In a statement, the Judicial Service Commission Chairperson Chief Justice Martha Koome says the directive to reduce the judiciary's appropriated budget by 15% will have far-reaching consequences on the judiciary operations, hence necessitating the decision to suspend all pending recruitments, including 11 judges of the Court of Appeal that was scheduled to commence today. The Court of Appeal currently has a total of 29 judges, serving only 6 stations across the country, translating to 9 benches at any given time. The court had a total of 13,331 pending cases as of May 2024. To enhance access to justice and reduce the huge backlog, the Commission successfully pursued amendments to the Judicial Cap 8 laws of Kenya, thereby increasing the number of judges in the Court of Appeal from 30 to 70. On 9th February 2024, the Commission advertised 11 vacancies in the office of the Judge of the Court of Appeal, aimed at substantially reducing the pending cases before the court. The statement further indicates that the death of Magistrate Monica Kivati of the Makadara Law Courts necessitated a restructuring and reallocation of the budget to meet security arrangements to provide a safe environment for all users of the courts. To ensure effective functioning in its service delivery, the Commission further says it will engage Parliament and Executive to enhance and secure the judiciary and JSC budget. Yusuf Far reporting for Prime Edition.
Kikohozi cha muda wowote, kutokwa na jasho kwa wingi usiku, uchungu kwenye kifua, afya kudhoofika, tafuta matibabu.
When are you ever going to stop?
Surely you are not one to doubt the repercussions?
You need to get back to the ring. Kaikara has not yet won.
Did he grow weak or something?
It's time to show Kaikara Joy left her man here.
We'll create a small scandal.
Asanteni sana kwa kuwezesha Loto Moto kuwafikia wengi wasiojiweza kupitia star 570 hash. Hapa umewafuta wengi machozi, umewaelimisha, umewapa makao, umewapa lishe na umewapa matibabu kwa namna tofauti. Asanteni.
Asanteni. Asanteni sana.
Na kwako wewe mchezaji wa Lotomoto, unajipa fursa ya kujishindia Probox nayo. Na kama Probox haikufai na umejishindia, tunakupa taslim 750,000 Kenyan shillings na mshindi na mtangaza 30th of June. Na mwezi wa July 28th na mtangaza mshindi wa Demio nayo. Na kama utaki na umeshinda, wacha gari, chukua chapa 750,000 Kenyan shillings kwenye star 570 hash. Wewe si mshindi tu, wewe ni tegemeo kubwa. Tusaidie na tushinde.
Tell this honorable court, are you single or married?
That has nothing to do with this case.
No. We are starting somewhere. Na mama alikuja kwako akakwambia nimemkataa, mtafute njia kunimaliza, si ndio?
Abana kitu kama namna hiyo.
Wewe nakuuliza,
yes.
Kila
not my type.
Mwanamke ama msichana akija kwako tu wewe anakutaka.
Yani I'm just like a magnet.
Mtu hawezi
I just attract them. Ulichukua na Jasmine Juma leni.
Kwa nini?
Amekuja hapa mahakama akasema vile mnapendana.
Of course, why not? Si hata mimi tunapendana hata na huyo na mtu yoyote anybody can like.
We are talking about love here.
Amesema wapi? Wewe toka.
Wewe ondoka.
Lakini wewe unaishi wapi?
Welcome back. You are watching the Prime Edition. And now the Kenya Film Commission hosted the awarding ceremony of the 7th edition of My Kenya, My Story mobile phone film competition under the theme Climate Change, Lights, Camera, Planet. Films that shape our climate agenda. The gala that took place at the National Museum in Nairobi brought together industry stakeholders, filmmakers, environmental advocates, and government representatives to celebrate the power of mobile technology in capturing Kenya's diverse landscapes, culture, and wildlife while addressing climate change challenges. Here is Jacqueline Masharia with cinemas and theatre segment.
What If, a short film by Calvin Oyula, emerged the winner of the 7th edition of My Kenya, My Story mobile film competition, walking away with 200,000 Kenya shillings.
Oh yes, Lily. It's called a park. It's called a what?
A park.
It's a special place where nature and people meet together.
The film, set in 2040, shows a flashback to 2023, showing young Lily and her father enjoying a vibrant park, discussing environmental preservation. A montage of pollution and disasters leads back to 2040, where Lily's anguish highlights the consequences of inaction.
I also want to say thank you to the Kenyan Film Commission and all the opportunities you are coming up to amplify the voices of young filmmakers. By so doing, you really give us the hope, the motivation that film industry is a space for each and every one of us to dwell into.
Huu kame wa sasa ndio uliotufanya tukakosa otherwise. Tukafungua hivyo visima kutafuta maji.
Following was the film Kisima by June Wairegi as the first runners-up that saw the team walk away with 150 Kenyan shillings.
Smile at the cameras. Please, makofi kwake June Wairegi. Well done.
Mr. Ahab's time is very scarce. Lakini vile umeona, he's making a very generous offer for your resettlement.
At the second runners-up was the film Adrinodi for Arthi by Ben Kibwana that saw the team walk away with 100,000 Kenya shillings.
Congratulations, 100,000 shillings to Mr. Ben Kibwana.
I was in love with a boy. The most beautiful boy. His eyes were like the evening sun, warm. I could spend an eternity basking under his stare, bathing in it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together for Camelot, Clinton Ayeki.
The film Camelot by Clinton Ayeki that saw the team walk away with 50,000 shillings was this year's special jury mention.
Mimi ni Project Genesis by George Kirogoi.
My Kenya, My Story competition organized by the Kenya Film Commission under the theme Climate Change, Lights, Camera, Planet Films that Shape Our Climate Agenda saw a submission of 159 short mobile films produced between 3 to 5 minutes, where only 13 got selected. Kenya Film Commission Chief Executive Officer Timothy Owase observed that the competition aims at powering the growth of the local film industry countrywide.
We provided this platform as one way of recruiting talented Kenyans who are willing to work in this industry, and maybe they do not have an avenue on how to be able to connect to storytelling component. So using mobile is an easy way of really identifying talent, so that we can now be able to pick up from there, nurture them, and commercialize whatever they are able to do.
Jacqueline Masharia for Cinemas and Theatre.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And the government, through the State Department of Correctional Services, is reviewing relevant legislation to establish a new correctional services legal order to address challenges related to healthcare services for detainees. Addressing the first Health in Detention Conference, Correctional Services Principal Secretary Salome Biaku, who represented Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, called for a multi-agency approach in handling the health of detainees. Congestion that has resulted in the 136 correctional facilities accommodating 63,000 inmates, nearly 3 times their capacity, poses a major challenge during disease outbreaks.
Detained must be seen just as that, people. Not a number, not the enemy, not a convict, but rather fellow human beings who are very vulnerable.
The Kenya Prison Service has implemented an open door policy. This policy has facilitated engagement with both governmental and non-governmental stakeholders across various healthcare initiatives, including HIV and TB prevention and treatment, mental health services, substance abuse programs.
As part of dignified treatment, prisoners are entitled to enjoy the highest attainable standard of health. This right is guaranteed under the international law in Article 25 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Article 12 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights.
A section of Nairobi leaders have condemned the infiltration of youth protests by goons to cause wanton destruction of property. Details of this in our stories in the County News Roundup.
No more killings. One Kenya.
The shift in the opposition to the finance bill from peaceful protests to anarchy has caused concern among Nairobi leaders. They called for an end to the protests to pave way for dialogue.
Ukiangalia hii mahali imefika, hizi demonstration, wale vijana wamejiondoa kwa barabara, sasa wale wamebakia ni uhalifu. Ukiangalia mtu anasema yeye ati ni kijana, na ukiangalia mpaka kichwa imejaa umvi. Hatuwezi kukubali hiyo maneno. Hao ni wakora. Wale watoto walikuwa peaceful, wako na logo zao zile, walikuwa wanavaa uniform na kila kitu. Saa hizi tunaona watu wengine tofauti.
So we understand
the fight that was there was the fight for the financial bill. The president declined the financial bill, and on top of that, the president accepted to have a dialogue with all of us as Kenyans.
In a related development, 4 people arrested in Machakos town on Tuesday for engaging in unlawful activities. Machakos County Police Commander Patrick Lobolia is now warning the youth against crime.
We want you to follow the law. We want them to make sure that at 6:30 they stop everything and let them go home. We know it's a mixture of young guys, ladies, and gentlemen. When it reaches that time, please make sure we disperse and go home. Past that time, you will be breaching.
Elsewhere, youth in Kakamega County have vowed to deal firmly with criminals who take advantage of their peaceful protests to rob pedestrians or break into shops.
Wale ambao wanakuja kutuletea guns kwa maandamano yetu, we have always been peaceful. Na watu wameka siasa ndani, wanatuma guns kukuja kuingia katika maandamano yetu, wanapora watu mali, wanaharibia watu mali yao.
And a group of 20 youth in Riverside Estate in Mwea, Kirinyaga County has found success in pig farming. Led by Karuga Kamau, the youth said the pig project started 6 months ago has economically empowered them.
Kwa sasa tunasema ni project mzuri sana kuweza tumeanza tu profit polepole ambayo ni ya kusaidiana na ndume ya nguruwe iende izalisha wengine na tunalipisha at 1,000 shillings unaona per female hivyo.
Mimi naomba youth wengi washikane kwa group kwa sababu kiongozi hawezi saidia mtu mmoja. Lakini wakiwa group, hata ninaomba hii group vile ikue kubwa ili tuweze kuwasaidia zaidi.
Back to the future. The future is simulate. Bet smarter. Win faster now. Be a winner. Mozartbet.
Nye umro anakupenda.
Jabali ameenda kwa nini?
Thanks for offering me a place to stay, but I'm sorry I can't take your offer.
So?
How many times have I told you staki mwanamke hapa kwangu? She just came to check up on me and see if I'm okay. Telephone? Mimi hata sina mahatiba na wewe akimama Jane. Hebu jiite mkutano. Ujichunguze. He's drinking, he's beating. You're jealous ilienda hivyo.
Mark is a changed man now.
I'd love to invite you to my traditional wedding.
I'm okay and I need to leave. Congratulations.
I hope Pete will make it too.
I'll make sure he attends.
A very good evening to you. Thank you for keeping it Prime Edition. Time to get the latest in the world of business. My name is Betty Kiptum. Now, the economy grew at a rate of 5% during the first 3 months of 2024, supported by agriculture due to favorable weather, the services sector and real estate. This is slower than the 5.5% economic growth rate recorded during a similar period in 2023 due to slower growth recorded by agriculture and manufacturing, as well as decelerations in construction and transport.
Agriculture, which accounts for a third of Kenya's gross domestic product, registered a growth rate of 6.1% during the first 3 months of the year, which is lower than the 6.4% registered in the first quarter of 2023. The growth in the agriculture sector was powered by favorable weather and government interventions that led to enhanced production. There were increases in tea, milk and sugarcane production, as well as declines in exports of coffee, fruits and cut flowers. The manufacturing sector also slowed to 1.3% as compared to 1.7% growth rate recorded during the first 3 months of 2023. This was mainly due to declines in cement and soft drinks production, which outweighed increases recorded by tea and dairy processing. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics says the construction sector registered a deaccelerated growth of 0.1%, down from the 3.0% growth recorded in the first quarter of 2023 due to a 12.7% decline in cement consumption. Transportation and storage sector registered a deaccelerated growth of 3.8% compared to a 6.6% growth recorded in the same quarter of 2023. Alanauko, Prime Edition.
And business activity recorded the sharpest decline in 7 months as seen in June, driven by the ongoing nationwide protests and policy uncertainty leading to negative impacts on sales. The latest Stanbic Bank Kenya's Purchasing Managers Index indicates that new business intakes also took a nosedive at the fastest rate since November last year, forecasting a dip in business confidence and a slower job creation.
The headline Purchasing Managers Index was a reading of 47.2 in June 2024, falling below the 50.0 neutral mark. The severe decline contrasted notably with the index's 16-month high reading of 51.8 in May, as the cost of living crisis exacerbated the country's economic outlook. Employment numbers continued to rise, however, remained the weakest ever seen to date. Despite reduced fuel prices and stronger exchange rates, overall input prices rose for the first time in 3 months. With the exception of the manufacturing and construction sector, purchasing costs increased within the wholesale and retail, agriculture, and service sectors. Firms contracted their inventories as higher taxation on products drove up costs, leading to reduced purchasing activity. The latest Stanbic Bank Kenya Purchasing Managers Index survey shows that the drop in sales in Kenyan businesses tempered efforts to expand capacity, leading to only a slight rise in output price in June. Expectations regarding output over the next 12 months slipped to a 4-month low as economic challenges led to firms showing less optimism towards future sales and output forecasts. Nduta Mokami for Prime Edition.
Still on the impacts of the protests, Kenya has witnessed a 17% decline in the value of exports over the last 3 weeks that the country has witnessed protests over the rejected Finance Bill 2024. Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry President Dr. Eric Ruto says logistics and retail sectors have been the hardest hit by the protests that have seen Kenya losing about 63 billion shillings in investor capital.
The National Chamber of Commerce has observed a worrying 17% decline in export activity since the protest began. Furthermore, the Nairobi Securities Exchange has lost 63 billion in investor wealth over the past 2 weeks, reflecting a decline in investor confidence in Kenya's economy due to the violent elements within the protest. Per day, we process exports of around 3 million. And if you can count for the last 2 weeks, we've been losing 3 million every day. So that comes to approximately 40 million since the protest started. So in terms of the economic and the value that we have lost as a country.
And Kenya is appealing to tourists and investors not to cancel their travel plans since the country is working on a speedy resolution to protests that have been witnessed over the last 3 weeks. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Dr. Alfred Mutua is assuring visitors that security has been beefed up to ensure travelers enjoy their stay in Kenya.
I call upon all our visitors, both local and international, to continue with their travel plans to Kenya, and we will give you our usual high standards of hospitality.
Tourists visited Kenya in 2023 for different reasons, including holidays, which accounted for 45%, visiting family and relatives at 24%, and meetings and conferences at 24%, earning the country 352 billion shillings.
Having said that, it means we have to do everything that we can as an industry to protect it.
We have the highest population of youth working in our hotels. So obviously we are very concerned about them, and we're also very concerned about the
violent protests witnessed in recent days threaten to roll back the gains made by the sector amid some cancellation In the mice niche sector,
we are working with our athletes also as our brand ambassador to just show that indeed this great country is not just great in terms of tourism, but we are also home of champions. The world to just come and experience how to live like a champion.
Kenya is still open for business as well as tourism. I'm Regina Manyara reporting for KBC Channel 1.
And an set up to support local high-tech startups scale up their operations and expand to the African market. Investment, Trade and Industry Cabinet Secretary Rebecca Miano says startups will be offered seed capital, capacity building and linkages to markets in the country.
The Capital Accelerator Program is a testament to Kenya's thriving entrepreneurial spirit. And as Ian said, we've got to become serial entrepreneurs, serial innovators, and our focus on encouraging investments in high-tech startups and scale-ups is in consonance to pep up our economic growth with our youth who are survey in tech capacities.
And South Africa-based Hollard Health Insurance Company has expanded services into Kenya with a plan to offer evacuation and out-of-country care. Hollard Health Global Sales General Manager David Van Der says the launch through a partnership with APA Insurance is part of an expansion plan after setting up in Namibia, Mozambique, Zambia, Lesotho and Botswana.
We're locally committed, which I think is really, really important. We're not trying to do things at arm's length. We're not trying to, smuggle the dollars out. We're compliant. We pay our local taxes. We've really gone the extra mile with that. Then we are member-centric, okay? So we believe that we do health with heart, and Lucy mentioned that at the Then we create the win-win-win-win, okay? And normally it's only 3 wins. I've added in an extra win, okay? I'm not sure if Hollard Marketing is going to love me for that, but the reality is that it needs to include every employer, to yourselves, through to the providers.
Collaboration with Hollard Health brings together a wealth of expertise and a shared commitment to foster a more empowered community. This partnership is more than just a business alliance. It is a convergence of visions, creating a positive impact on the health of our members.
And that is all on the business news this evening. Sports news is coming up with Daniel Wahome. My name is Betty Kiptum. Good night.
News is brought to you by Mozart Bet.
A very good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome. The Kenya Sevens rugby squad to the 2024 Olympic Games Shujaa has been named with 10 players set to make their debut in a quadrennial showpiece, while core captain Vincent Tonyala and Herman Humwa will be parents. The team is scheduled to leave the country on Monday for intensified training in Miramas before they head to France, or rather Paris.
Shujaa, who have been camping at Kasarani since they reclaimed their core status in the World Series, will be making their third appearance in the Olympic Games with a new crop of players who are hungry for more success after an outstanding season. Accompanied by 2 reserves, include all the players who were instrumental in Kenya's promotion battle in the Challenger Cup. That is co-captain Tony Omondi, Samuel Asati, Kevin Wekesa, Brian Odongo, Lamek Ambetsa, Nigel Amaita, Chris Hunt Ojwang, John Okoth, and George Oro.
There's so much at stake because we've worked hard, and I think as a team, is a podium finish. That starts from the quarters onto the semis, and definitely third place, second place, or the first place is good to us.
For the season, it's been a good season. The young boys are bringing a game, and it's been a good season for us. We've managed to come back to the series, and we also managed to qualify the Olympics. And how the boys have been prepared, I think it's a good preparation right now.
Wambua, who will also be making his debut in the Olympic Games, said he has faith in the team, which has sacrificed a lot, determined to get past their first hurdle onto the knockout stages.
The reason why I wake up every single morning and try hard to be better, they've been so cooperative, they're very coachable, they're very disciplined, and that's what any coach wants. So for me, I'll continue back. They're trusting in the system, they're trusting in the processes, so we work hard to complement each other and see where this journey takes us.
The Kenya Sevens rugby team, who qualified for the Olympics as the African champion, will be in the Rugby Sevens tournament with Argentina, Samoa and Australia, with the competition set to begin on the 24th of July this year in Paris.
World Athletics has ratified the women's world marathon record. That's a women's only marathon record set by Paris Jepchirchir earlier this year. The Kenyan marathoner set the new women's 15 minutes and 16 seconds in April this year when she won the London Marathon to improve the previous record held her by compatriot Mary Kaitani by 45 seconds. The women's world indoor 60-meter hurdles record of 7.65 seconds set by Bahamian Duvain Charlton at the World Indoor Athletics Championships in Glasgow. Meanwhile, the Kenya back from the 10th Africa Cup in Libreville, where they won 2 gold and 2 silver medals. The gold medals were won by German-based Mary Kagweria and Douglas Sang in the individual competitions, as Judith Riongo bagged a silver. Kenya was represented by a team of 4 players. Continental Ice Talk, who also came back with a silver medal from the team competition. Now, the Kenya Paralympics Committee will, let me repeat that. The Kenya Paralympics Committee will name its final athletics team to the Paralympic Games in Paris on Friday. Nathan Kemboi and Sheila Wanyonyi have been sharpening their javelin throw skills at Kasarani under the guidance of coach Joseph Mosonik, hoping to make the cut and grace their first Paralympic Games in Paris. Sheila competed in the Grand Prix in Tunisia, came back with a silver medal before gracing the World Para-Athletics Championships that took place in Japan, where she finished 5.2 meters in the women's javelin F13 category for visually impaired athletes. Kemboi is also eyeing a slot in the Paralympics based on high performance rankings, despite missing the qualification, having graced the World Championships too, where he finished 10th in the men's javelin F46 category with a personal best of 52.5 meters.
Hapo naenda kuijua sasa au Paralympic inaendagwa, and then I do this. So even if nitaingia pale na nikose medal, the next one naijua very qualified and then to go and get medal there.
My expectation ni kwa ninataka nika perform better than before, and like hata kama sitakuwa position 1 or 2, nikwe somewhere there. I don't want position 8 anymore. Yeah, that is what I'm like. Nikajapata that chance, nitashukuru sana.
Now, Emerging Stars of Kenya have been ruled out of contention for a place in the semi-finals of the COSAFA Cup today, where Namibia beat the Seychelles by 3-1 to advance to the last 4 as the best runners-up across 3 groups. They will face Mozambique in the semi-finals on Friday after Comoros play against Angola, who beat Lesotho by 3-1. nations, among them Kenya, await in anticipation for the 2025 CAF Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers draw that will be held tomorrow afternoon in Johannesburg, South Africa. The draw for the tournament to be held in Morocco will be broadcast live on 3:30 p.m. tomorrow.
Anticipation towards the official draw of the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers is building up, with the 48 African nations edition of the competition that has since surpassed all expectations at its recent staging in Cote d'Ivoire earlier this year. Hailed as the best AFCON thanks to the world-class viewing experience, exceptional organization and record global viewership, the biggest event on African soil has catapulted to its greatest heights. With the baton now of following its unparalleled success in Cote d'Ivoire, all nations will be aiming at securing a place at what has now become one of the biggest tournaments in world football. The official draw will PM and will be televised live on KBC Channel 1. The draw on Thursday officially maps the pathway to qualification to Morocco, where each of the 48 nations will be drawn into the 12 that will determine who qualifies for next year's continental showpiece, set to be contested by 24 nations.
And Turkey and Netherlands sealed the last two slots in the quarterfinals of Euro 2024 after winning the last 16 months. Turkey defeated Austria by 2-1 in Leipzig, while the Netherlands beat Romania 3-0 at the Munich Football Arena. Spain and Germany will kickstart the quarterfinal stage on Friday before Portugal meet France in the late kickoff. And that's a sport for tonight. Join us tomorrow and we find out who Kenya will be facing in the qualifiers for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, played in September, October and November, and will be live KBC Channel 1. The draw will be live on Y254, 3:30 p.m. Have a good evening. Back to you, John Jacob Kioria.
Sports News was brought to you by Mozart Bet.
You can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky. Mozart Bet.
As we put a cap on Prime Edition this Wednesday, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, we're still on standby for High Court. We expect a decision to be made by Senior Principal Magistrate Wandia Nyamo regarding an application that has been made by the DCI. The application seeks to detain 5 protesters who were arrested yesterday in the anti-finance bill protests. And the application seeks to detain them for another 21 days. Investigations, and Ruth Wamboi is still there monitoring the situation. For now, my name is John Jacob Kioria. Thank you very much to Anne Wangeshi, our sign language interpreter, and every person who made. Good night. See you around.
Aviator instant game. Be a daring pilot and earn by how much high you can lift. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Mozart Bet.
Hapa ndipo nyumbani. Oeleme.
Mwalimu ni nyota yanga. Kofia twakuvulia. Leo kuliko jana.
Mtandao ina faida ama ina hasara?
Mitandao imeweza kusaidia kukuza elimu. Tukizingatia wakati wa likizo, wanafunzi wengi wanaweza wakitumia mitandao ya kijamii.
Katika vitongoji duni kuna wanafunzi ambao hawezi kupata huo mtandao, na pia ni gharama ya juu kutumia mtandao huo.
Bembea ni kifaa kinachotumika na watoto kucheza. Unaona kuwa bembea huenda juu na kurudi chini wakati mwingine.
Cheza loto, shinda pesa moto.
Tuko ndani ya Kayole Masimba na tunachafua masamaki kama kitu kingine, kwa sababu kuna kitu special ambayo imefanyika na hili